Hello and welcome to Dame Pop Frippery Presents Dudes You Don't Even Know, a podcast about the hidden, the obscure, the forgotten, and the ignored in all of recorded music history. I'm Dame Pop Frippery. I'm your host. We had a little short explainer before this as 00, just explaining who I am, what the archive is, and why I have this and I'm doing a podcast. So, in short, if you don't feel arsed to listen to it, I'm an artist. I collect weird things. I made my archive based on female singers mostly, unlike a lot of the white guys. It's a really large span. I'd say the probably most populous areas are the 20s and the current days. But it spans everything in between. In fact, there's even tracks from ancient Sumer reconstructed and recorded a few years ago. How we're going to do this is each episode talk about any feedback we get on the prior episode, if any. I'm not expecting high numbers currently. We'll also discuss any thoughts I had after the episode, and then we'll get into a little discussion of why we have this artist for this episode and the song. We'll go into who the artist is and their history. We'll play the full clip of the song, and then we'll discuss the history of the song, any popular feedback, etc. to it at its time. And we'll wrap up with my thoughts and a preview of next week's episode. So this episode is the grand premiere, episode 1, Lucille Bogan, Shave 'Em Dry. I picked this song because it's very representative of who I am, what I seek out for my archive. This is stuff I'm actively listening to. I mean, obviously it takes a while to go all around, but it's stuff I like to listen to even to today. This track in particular represents several areas of interest for me. 1, Lucille Bogan was a black female artist. 2, I hate censorship. I hate it so goddamn much. Do not even comment on the swears. You will just be blocked. I do not fucking care. I really, truly hate censorship. And so this is a great track to discuss that for the time when it came out and to today. And it also shows rarity, because the fact this song even exists in recorded versions that we can hear today in 2026 is nothing short of miraculous. It's a really odd duck as far as recorded history goes. These songs would be performed at black juke joints for black audiences, but they were almost never recorded, and if they were, we ain't seeing them. So this is almost a one-off. Finally, it is of interest in the case of Lucille Bogan herself because it was the second to last song she ever recorded. So let's play a clip right here. This is Shave 'Em Dry by Lucille Bogan, version 2.
Say I fucked all night and all the night before, baby, and I feel just like I want to fuck some more. Oh, great God, daddy, grind me, honey, and shave me dry.
Now, wasn't that the filthiest goddamn song you've ever heard? It is filthier than most modern music, and that also makes it really rare and quite a bit of fun because, we'll go into it more in a little while, but when there were blue songs, as they were called, they were rarely that forward. I think this might be one of the earliest instances of the word fuck being used in recorded music history. I haven't seen anybody look into that. It'd be pretty hard to show, but it's very interesting. So, biography of Lucille Bogan is she was born Lucille Anderson in Amory, Mississippi. I hope I'm saying that right. Please forgive me if I'm not. She was probably born in 1895, but women at the time could just lie, and they usually did. So her birth date can be as late as like 1905 on some pieces of paper. She married at the age of 16. She married at the age of 16, divorced, married her second husband with whom she had a son, Nazareth, and she was about, fuck me, let's do that all again. Lucille Bogan was born Lucille Anderson in Amory, Mississippi. She was probably born in 1895. She married quite young, divorced, remarried, and had her son Nazareth Jr. in around 1916. She did also divorce this man who gave her the name Bogan and later married James Spencer. Now, that's as far as we know. Recorded history for black people and non-whites in the United States for this time period is not great. It's almost ridiculous. Like, if you're a white person and you want to find out what your great-great-grandfather was doing around this time, it's fairly easy. If you're a black person, you're going to have trouble getting past great-grandma a lot of the time because the records aren't always online. Everything was segregated, and people just did not care because of racism. So, it's a bit of a spotty history we got for Lucille. She first recorded in 1923. She started in vaudeville around 1920. That's kind of like your local bar where anybody can get up and perform. There was anything from pet shows like Pet Tricks to Buster Keaton and his family doing little routines to an opera star on literal Broadway. All of this was vaudeville. And in France, there was even a man who was extremely famous for farting on command on vaudeville. I shit you not. Look it up. It is just so funny when you hear French people are so snooty. And this dude was like the most popular entertainer till movies came along. So yeah, things stay the same a lot of the time. She was the first black woman to record outside of LA or New York. She recorded in Atlanta. She had studied recording and performing work through the 20s, but by the time you get to about 1927 or so, they start getting bawdier. Now, not as bawdy as this, at least in what we have in recordings. But this was not a one-off. She had songs that we have in fairly scandalous terms that your average person wouldn't get at the time, like Beatty Blues, Bull Dyke Blues. There was Sloppy Drunk Blues. There's all sorts of them. And one of my favorites is Till the Cows Come Home. And that's another rarity because not only do we have her being extremely brusque in this song, Until the Cows Come Home, we also have a dirty version that was recorded. So this was clearly not a one-off, This was the second to last song she ever recorded, Shave 'Em Dry. And she recorded 3 versions. 2 and 3 are both the filthy versions. They're slightly different, mostly in the musical way. The first version is the clean version that was released to the public. And I just think it's kind of funny that was one of her last recordings. Like, that is so the Lucille Bogan I seem to get based on what we know about her. We'll get into the history of the song in a second. So, 1935, she ends recording and assumedly performing. She manages her son's jazz group for the next 10 years, and she dies in 1948. By the 30s, she was living in Los Angeles, and she is buried near there in Carson, California. She was mostly forgot for a very, very long time. And we'll get into this in a little while as well, but this song actually brought her back to the attention of modern audiences because, of course, it did. We're very filthy people. But she seems like a cool gal. Do we know if she was queer as well, given Bull Dyke Blues and a few other of these songs? I mean, I don't know. That's such a hard thing to pin down as a proof of a fact in a historical person, especially one with so few, citations. There's so few things we have about her. According to the background dancers who danced with Josephine Baker before she hit it big on the Chitlin circuit, which is unfortunately what they called black vaudeville at the time. It was not uncommon for girls to hook up because you'd have like 5 or 6 girls to a bed because the promoters were cheap as shit. And if you fool around with a guy during the run of the show, you could get pregnant. But you fool around with a gal, well, no problem there. And according to this dancer who was interviewed, she said, it wasn't something you didn't consider yourself queer. You didn't consider it something you did back in your real life, off stage, off tour. It was just something you did while you were out on the road. Now, by today's standards, we go, well, there's a little pansexuality up in there, but at the time, no, they would not have considered themselves queer. So whether Lucille even took part in that stuff, there's like no record. But if she did, she probably would not have considered herself queer. However, she literally also came back to attention for her queer song as one of the earliest recordings in English about queerdom. And so it's always a trivia note. All right, let's get into the history of Shave 'Em Dry. But first, the song itself. Please enjoy the full version of Shave 'Em Dry.
I got nipples on my titties, big as the end of my thumb. I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come. Oh, daddy. Baby, won't you shave 'em dry? No. Want you to grind me, baby. Grind me until I cry. Say I fucked all night and all the night before, baby. And I feel just like I want to fuck some more. Oh, great God, daddy, grind me, honey, and shave me dry. And when you hear me holler, baby, I want you to shave dry. I got nipples on my titties, big as the end of my thumb. Daddy, you say that's the kind of woman you want, and you can make 'em come. Oh, daddy, shave me dry. And I give you something, baby, well, it'll make you cry. I'm going to turn back my mattress and let you oil my springs. I want you to grind me, daddy, till the bell do ring. Oh, daddy, want you to shave 'em dry. Oh, great God, daddy, if you can't shave 'em, baby, won't you try? Now, fucking was a thing that would take me to heaven. I'd be fucking in the studio till the clock strike 11. Oh, daddy, shave 'em dry. I would fuck you, baby, honey, I'd make you cry. Now your nuts hang down like a damn bell clapper, and your dick stands up like a steeple. Your goddamn asshole stands open like a church door, and the crowd walks in like people. Ow! Shit! Oh, woo! Baby, won't you shave 'em dry? A big sow gets fat from eating corn, and a pig gets fat from sucking. When you see this horror fat like I am, great God, I got fat from fucking. Shave 'em dry. My back is made of whalebone, and my cock is made of brass, and my fucking is made for working me in $2. Great God, round to kiss my ass. Oh, woo, daddy, shave 'em dry.
Now, that was a song, was it not? Because, yes, it got filthier. I should have mentioned before that this song, Shave 'Em Dry, also is a reference to lesbian sex, because according to one man who wrote some part of it, that was a euphemism for literally lesbian sex, shave 'em dry. The history of the song Shave 'Em Dry is going to be a great example of what we're running into with these older songs. The writing, the composition, good luck, because especially if you're talking blues and jazz, which I argue is too tight of a term for just black music at the time. I mean, swing was coming in as Lucille was going out, but I still don't think a lot of her music was just jazz or blues, at least by today's standards. When you come to music of this nature, just like white singers with folk music, people were always taking something that already existed and building upon it. And so we have sheet music from 1917 with that term, but it doesn't match much else. We got the first recording of Shave 'Em Dry in 1924 by legendary Ma Rainey. And Ma Rainey, along with Big Bill Broonzy, said they wrote that version. Now, it's not as filthy. It's also not exactly even similar to Lucille's clean version, but they probably definitely added to, the stew we're making here. The song kept waving through various versions, including Papa Charlie Jackson, who claimed he also wrote some of it in 1925, Boodle It Wiggins in 1929, and then Lucille's in 1935. After Lucille's, 1936, Lil Johnson, the first wife of Louis Armstrong, performed a version, but it was not, as bawdy. Now back to Ma Rainey. You're going, okay, well, how dirty could you be in 1924? And the answer is, in recordings, not very. I mean, the message is very similar. Some of the lyrics are even the same as a clean version. Probably the closest lyric similarity to Ma Rainey and Lucille's. Ma Rainey singing, "Hey Daddy, won't you shave 'em dry?" There was a great release of all of Lucille's known recordings in 1994. This label release, they did a lot of this for female artists back in the day, so I salute them deeply. Keith Briggs did the liner notes for Lucille's releases, and he notes that he believes, she did not know the lyrics, that this was written for her, and she sounds surprised and unfamiliar with the lyrics in the song. I hear the same recording, and I do not agree at all. She sounds like she's having fun. She sounds like she's amusing herself trying to get these words out in what I assume is the fewest takes possible. Because recording everything back then, you basically had 1 to 3 shots and you're done, because it's going to cost a lot of money. I've never seen too many releases for any songs that were past 3, maybe 4 recordings. You had to get it, and you had to get it right. And, I think the pressure may have made her a little more giggly. She had been performing this song for a while in these juke joints. Of course, when you only have a few takes and you gotta get it right, saying things like nipples on my titties, big ass thumbs, yeah, it's gonna be hard to keep a straight face. But she sounds like she's having a lot of fun to me. Add in Till the Cows Come Home, that filthy version, plus all the other less filthy but still a little filthy songs from the 30s. I have no proof, but based on what we have of her, I do think colored these lyrics herself, or she had somebody she trusted to do so. So I don't believe they were just handed to her. I think she either had a part in it or she was well aware of it, because you did not just show up unprepared at the recording studio back in that day. Forget about it. Another part that's really, really interesting about this song in particular, it should not exist. Now you're gonna go, duh, saying fuck in a release in 1935 was not going to fly. Of course it wasn't. But let me explain for people who may not be familiar with the format, because I want this to be open to everybody. Sad, sad life of 78 RPMs. So the first recordings ever made were on wax cylinders, and you had 1 take, and that's the take that existed. The first recorded country song was by a black man, and he did this. He just recorded hundreds of versions of the same song. We get one or two that survive, and we're lucky for it. Next was the diamond disc. These were like 10-inch discs. And they were also by Edison with heavy quotation marks because we know he passed Dave Musk. Anyways, these did not have a long life. They broke even easier than 78 RPMs. They didn't scratch as badly though. When 78 RPMs came out, which probably about 1910, 1912, that's when music really took off as a home device, because you gotta remember, there's no radio. This is all we got for recordings. There's no TV. It's not even an idea yet. So this is one of the first medias that enters the home, and it kind of was already there with piano scrolls, the auto piano playing. When you get to the 78s, that lasts through about 1945. As I mentioned in my intro thing, they did eventually make more bendy 78s, but it was just for radio, not for the home use, which is very odd to me. I don't understand where that logic came from. Anyways, the 78s, as we know them, are flimsy as shit. They're hard, but they break like nothing else. I collect them, and I've still broken them. They scratch just by looking at them. They, at various times, were made of whatever sweepings they found on the factory floor. So your quality plus your lifespan of that item is very finicky. Now, of course, there were also pressing discs. These are extremely, I cannot even stress enough how extremely rare. I followed Belle Baker, another great singer from the 20s, on eBay for like 15 years now. Oh my God, I'm so old. I've seen these discs for her go up once for one song. They were made of some kind of metal, and they were what they pressed the records on. If you got a really clear song from the 20s, that's your probably best bet. But they're so rare. And based on what we have, the recordings we have, I doubt they found one for this song or much else of Lucille's. This would have been something that mostly stayed with the record company anyways, or the company who pressed the records. So it wouldn't be something she'd really have access to. So we got these 78 RPMs. They somehow survive all that time. And per my previous little episode snippet, any record collecting took up so much space. And so I'm assuming her son, I have no proof otherwise of anything, this is just my guess, I'm assuming he kept her recordings and kept the set together till either he died or a grandchild of hers got their hands on them, and that's how they made it to the 90s. But on other times when there's no family, I know eBay didn't exist yet, because a lot of the shit came to be in the late 90s, but these 1994 CDs, they had to have been out there with, sources and people to talk to who knew where to find these records. So they could also just be something some collector had, but the filthy songs, I'm doubting that. That seems like something a family member would have had. That would have been a 1 to 3 off pressing, maybe, if even. So it's really, really, really rare that a song like this would have been recorded. But not just that, lasted until 1994, and then we have it. So it's almost its own little miracle. And if you're wondering how the record releases went, so it went 78 RPM, so about mid-40s, late 40s. 45 RPM, those little discs, came next. By the 50s, then it was a 33 1/3, but those didn't get popular till the 60s, really. I have one of the first, it was in the set George gave me. I have one of the first players that actually even played both of those with 78s, because I looked it up. It was very rare, 1948. So yeah, this is just a really fascinating time in music history where if you can find something you can even stand listening to because of the crinkle, crackle, and God knows what else, then you found a real gem. That's just in general. That's not just the filthy songs. It's really remarkable that 2-3 of her recordings that were extremely filthy, because I'm counting both versions of Shave 'Em Dry, lasted that long to play that well. how Shave 'Em Dry brought Lucille back, and my very, very pet hatred of censorship that plays into this song. So let's start with Lucille because this is about her. This song really went unnoticed because the filthy version never came out. It was first put on that compilation of all her recordings in 1994 and it'd be repressed in 2004, I think it was. Then Shave 'Em Dry, for the first time for most anybody, came out on a CD compilation of all these filthy songs in 1998, or if you will, the height of the swing revival, if you're too young to remember. Cherry Poppin' Daddies did a song about the Zoot Suit riots, which was actually a very sad and racially charged event. They made it very jazzy and jiving. And it got into a Gap commercial, and suddenly for like a year, people were like so in the 1950s. And so I can definitely see how an album that says, hey, we got the old music and this is all filthy. Well, I checked the listing and I know several of the songs. She's by far the filthiest. This also came back to note the more that YouTube existed, because even with that repressing in 2004 or so, YouTube didn't exist till 2005. It'd take a while, but people started noticing it. There was listicle, I hate that word, but that's what it was, on Cracked of all the filthiest murderous songs of the 1920s and 30s. I thought, this can't be that filthy, come on now. Boy, was I wrong. I mean, I knew 20s music and 30s music at the time, so that's why I thought that. I was like, no way it can be that filthy. Boy, is it. God's bless it, man. In fact, this also plays into what I call the fuck Jan Warner phenomenon. If you don't know Jan Warner, he was the founder of Rolling Stone magazines. He still has a hand in it, though he's like in his 90s. He also had a big hand in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. When interviewed, he was asked why there weren't so many women in Rolling Stone during his tenure. And he goes, oh, women aren't that interesting musically. Well, he's a hateful little gay man, but that's all right. I'll show that queen a thing or two. Like, come on, bro, you don't even know. And he's saying this, like, his tenure was like Janis Joplin time, Karen Carpenter time. There's a real old white guy phenomena with music collecting that I just fucking hate. I could go on and on, but I'll put it simply like my father said the greatest guitarists were all these white guys in the 70s and 80s of the big hair bands and whatnot. And I said, name 5 more. And he's like, but what do you want? I said, I don't know, fucking Sister Rosetta Tharpe, the woman who invented rock and roll. And she also popularized playing the electric guitar. We're talking 1938. He did not believe me. I put on a documentary and he was like blown away because all his favorite musicians were in it saying she was the greatest and they all wanted to be like her. In the 70s, Neil Peart, considered one of the best drummers of all time by these type of dudes, was asked how it felt to be the greatest drummer of all time, and he said, I don't know, go ask Karen Carpenter. Karen Carpenter wasn't taken seriously because she was forced to be in a shit band with her shitty brother by her even shittier parents. And while some of it's fun music, she had a really, really sad life and she died so young. If you ever see those greatest players of all time list, you'll never see Karen Carpenter or Sister Rosetta Tharpe. In fact, the woman who invented goddamn rock and roll didn't even get into the Hall of Fame till I think it was 2022. What? Fuck you, Jan Warner. That's just kind of the attitude I like with this style of music too, because it proves all that wrong. Is this not interesting? It is interesting. And it's also fun. It's a good number. It's got good playing, good singing. And it's also the song that my mother and we do not get along at all. I like to scan my music before I add it to my library. So she says one day, she's like, oh, I love all that old music. It's so nice. And nobody ever swears or is vulgar. She caught me on a day I was listening to like Helen Forrest and the Andrews Sisters. Well, one of the Andrews Sisters were a lesbian, so jot that down. 2, they're great musicians, the 4 of them, but they never recorded anything this filthy except the Andrews Sisters' most popular song, Rum and Coca-Cola, is about prostitution of a black island by white American soldiers. They claim they didn't know. I don't know. I can kind of believe it, but wow. So, yeah, Mother, it's not all nice and clean. I said, oh, really, Mom? You think that? She's like, yeah, I just don't like this modern music. It's so filthy and nasty. She's a fundy Christian, by the way, if you're wondering. I said, okay, Mother, I have a song from 1935 for you. Once we got past the first three lines, she pretty much, the shock on her face subsided, and she's like, oh, that's just nasty. 1935, Mother. Because I really do hate when people say that of the past. That is just all basically the Lennon sisters on Lawrence Welk style shit. And yes, that whiteness and, gray boringness exists. I mean, come on. Oh my God, there's so many awful musicians of that nature. They sang fine and performed fine, but God, it was like a sleeping pill. And this also plays into censorship. Music was pretty much super censored from the get-go because they literally put anything they thought was black into what they called the race records, because there's only two races to the 1920s. The Boswell sisters, the aunties of the Andrews sisters, they were so pleased when their first one was put in the race section because they thought that meant they weren't bland. There's a lot of problems going on there, but I kind of get what they're going for. Music was pretty free overall through the 20s and 30s. It's just if you release something like this, they come at you with pitchforks and lynching. That's kind of why Billie Holiday even performed Strange Fruit in the same manner that Lucille performed Shave 'Em Dry. Now, of course, Strange Fruit is a very sad song, a solemn song, not a body song, but she would not play it in mixed company unless she thought the crowd was right for it, that she'd be safe, which makes a ton of sense. The censorship really got going in the 50s and 60s. Then, of course, you got the satanic panic with all the rock and roll bullshit like Kiss, who went all Trumpy, blah. But it really kicked off when I was a teen, because if you lived anywhere rural, now mind you, we didn't have the internet yet. It's 2000, 2001. And even if we did, the pirating sites are pretty scarce at this point. If you had anywhere to buy music in most shitty towns, it'd be Walmart. Well, at the time, Walmart stopped selling uncensored records. So if you wanted Eminem, you had to get something that every other word was a record scratch or whatnot. And CDs were at their highest price point for that time period, $25 to $30. It's like, why should I pay $30 to hear who is the most popular artist right now at the time, Eminem? And I can't even hear his music because it's just bleep, bleep, bleep. So that is another thing I'm extremely passionate about, and I feel like the song is a great example. So many people through its afterlife from 1935 to present would have been very thrilled to break that record in half. So it no longer existed, and I'm just glad it does exist. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and the next episode is episode 2, Delilah Bond, Dead Men Don't Rape, 2022. And that's almost like 90 years in the future from Shave 'Em Dry. But it's a really great song that's perfect for this time period right now. It was written after the fall of Roe in the United States. And Delilah Bond went from being just kind of a screamo performer, a feminist performer, to a full-on protest performer. And so I'm very excited to share some of her music. Please tune in next time. And if you like this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. I'd like to have an audience of more than one. Thank you.